Good morning, Carly and Todd. A huge turn of events in Texas where Ken Paxton's primary marks the win of John Cornyn's two-decade streak as senator. Paxton easily defeated Cornyn in the GOP runoff, 63 to 36%, another sign of the president's power over the GOP. President Trump had criticized Cornyn for not siding with him on some issues like ending the filibuster and the Save America Act. Still, Cornyn is promising to support the Republican ballot.
I've always supported the Republican ticket, and I intend to do so again in this general election. I've said throughout this race that I trust the voters of Texas, and they've made their decision, and I must respect it.
The president's endorsement of Paxton angered some Republicans who worry about whether he can prevail over Democratic Senate candidate James Tallarico. Paxton, though, insists Texas voters wanted change.
Tonight is not the end of a campaign. Tonight is the beginning of the fight to preserve every value we hold dear. The future of Texas and the future of America is on the line. Texas will be the radical left's #1 priority. But if there's one thing I know about Texans, is that we're not going to let them take it.
Meantime, Congressman Chip Roy, one of the most conservative members in the House, fell short of winning the GOP nomination to succeed Paxton as the state attorney general. Republican State Senator Mace Middleton won that contest. And in the newly redrawn 18th congressional district, 38-year-old freshman Representative Christian Menifee defeated 78-year-old Congressman Al Green in what's seen as a sign of generational change. And controversial Democratic candidate Maureen Galindo lost her primary runoff to Johnny Garcia in the 35th congressional district. Galindo was accused of anti-Semitism for floating a plan to imprison, quote, American Zionists at an ICE detention center. She had edged out Garcia in the March primary. Overnight, she lost the runoff by more than 20 percentage points.
You know, John Thune, you could have just passed the SAVE Act. You could have just done that. Imagine if you had just done the will of the voters, your base. And that's what we're going to talk about today in this glorious morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the program. Victorious! The MAGA movement over the rhinos. We've gone rhino hunting. No longer illegal, ladies and gentlemen, and this is a species that I wish to be extinct politically and metaphorically. And we did a great work for the Republic, and it is today, Wednesday, May 27th, 2026, a wonderful birthday present for yours truly, ladies and gentlemen. A peace deal with Iran has been announced by Iranian state TV, and rhinos are going down in flames. Ken Paxton, our boy. We've been supporting Ken Paxton for years. And we supported Ken Paxton through all of the deep state attacks on him, all of the Bush era gangland attacks on him. They hate Ken Paxton. He's a different type of Republican. He's America First MAGA, President Trump loving Republican. He's somebody that isn't for permanent amnesty, gun grabbing, country clubs and silk stockings, limp-wristed weakness. That is the old Republican Party, and that is what John Cornyn represented. And John Cornyn went down in flames, and he deserved to. And I'm going to explain to you one story that I have personally witnessed myself in Washington, D.C. as to why John Cornyn needed to burn last night. There are many, and they'll probably be told on this show. We have Brandon Gill on the program, locked in, ladies and gentlemen. Congressman Wesley Hunt talking about his political future. Of course, him endorsing Ken Paxton did a massive number for Ken. He was running for the Texas Senate seat, and in an act of absolute graciousness, waited for the president to endorse, then followed through with the president. Steve Toth joins the program. He's the man who beat Dan Crenshaw. And also, I hear we might have a very special guest. We'll see. My producers are trying to confirm. We'll have a very special guest. One of the winners of last night's races, maybe the most important winner of last night's races. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. American financing Make sure that you have an American future. Make sure that you are stacking up wins in 2026. The biggest win that you could possibly stack is getting out of debt. Make sure that you are getting out of debt with my friends at American Financing. They can specialize in rebuilding a plan so that you can pay off debt. Debt is at the highest rate it's ever been for American families. I want that to end. I want that to be over. I want that to be done. I'm sick, ladies and gentlemen, to my heart of the out of control federal spending and then out of control household spending in America. It's not healthy. It's not good. It's not good. It's not spiritually healthy. It's not morally healthy. Ladies and gentlemen, get your spending under control. Get your debt under control. American Financing can help you. On average, their customers are saving $800 a month. It's real breathing room. Start today. And you can delay your mortgage payments. America's Home for Home Loans, 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219. AmericanFinancing.net/Benny. All right, ladies and gentlemen, MAGA is victorious last night, and we told you they would be. Let's go ahead over here to show you the predictive power of this program and some of the wonderful news. We said yesterday, to start off the show, first post in the morning, this will be John Cornyn's last day in power. John Cornyn deserved to lose. John Cornyn deserved to lose because he is totally and completely out of step and out of sync with what Texas wants. Not only with the MAGA base that is in full dominant control of the Republican Party, but also morally. Here's a John Cornyn ad in Spanish saying he's for legalization of all criminal aliens.
De la legalización de los dreamers.
I'm John Cornyn, and I approve this message.
What do you think legalización of los dreamers means? It means kids that were brought here, probably child smuggled, by criminal aliens breaking our law. John Cornyn's in favor of the legalization of all of them. I wonder how that would poll in Texas. Let's go ahead and check. Oh, yeah, the Hispanic numbers in Texas swung hard for Ken Paxton. Mexicans don't like this. Hispanics don't like this. Guatemala, people who came here illegally don't like amnesty. It's over. Open immigration, open borders, open amnesty. It's finished. That wing, that plank of the Republican Party has been burned to cinders. It's finished. It's done. John Cornyn represented this red state, border state, Republican senator, old, crusty country club white guy who's going to come in there and make friends with Cory Booker and AOC and pass amnesty. That's what John Cornyn represented. And he was destroyed last night. I said on Newsmax, should I wear a suit for the show? What do you guys think? This is from the same studio. You know, you see the old podcast mic here. Should I wear a suit for the show? Are we wearing a suit? I don't know. But I said on Newsmax last night, they're like, what's the lesson? What's the 10-second lesson from Texas today?
Across the state of Texas to Washington.
RINO hunting. That RINO hunting is no longer illegal.
Yes.
So we should poach them. Should I wear a suit? Chat, should I wear a suit? Should I wear a suit? We're going to lose the aesthetic if I wear a suit. I don't know. But I said that RINO hunting, ladies and gentlemen, is back on the menu, boys, and that's exactly what happened. Look at this. Ooh, doggy. Klein, can I get a never go full retard? Thank you very much. Can I get a never go full retard? This is what going full retard means for John Cornyn.
Never go full retard.
Look at that. I'm happy with the twofer, honestly. Look at this. John Cornyn winning, as far as I can tell, a county. One county. John Cornyn wins. Oh, okay. Great job, everyone. Oh, it's the Kennedy Space Center County. Is that it? You're joking. Okay, so it's where all of the government jobs are. Really? Okay, so where all the federal employees sucking off the taxpayer teat is. Of course, yellow, the yellow or golden color is Ken Paxton. John Cornyn, let's look at the numbers. A nearly 30-point spread, 27.7 points for Ken Paxton. An absolute dominant victory here. Massive overperformance. John Cornyn been in the Senate for nearly 40 years. 500,000 votes, a pittance and pitiful Ken Paxton roaring to victory. I'd love just one more massive cheer. Can I get one more massive cheer for our boy, Ken Paxton? Oh, look at the beauty of this. Look at this. And you should be very angry. You should be enraged. Donor dollars are a finite thing for the Republican Party. Nobody has infinite donor dollars. Don't care who your donors are. And RINOs spent $100 million for John Cornyn to lose by 400,000 votes. And this is why John Cornyn deserves to lose. Because we need to send a message to the establishment Republicans. We need to send a message to these cucks. And let me tell you what, man, I know how these people think. These people in the Senate think of themselves as the modern day lords and ladies, people who live in landed aristocracy, that they can do as they please. They can rig races. They can cheat elections. They don't ever have to answer to anyone. And it's what makes me so angry about the way that the Senate operates. Because they have all this money and all these lobbying connections and all this big corporate cash, they believe they can just come in and bulldoze the Republican voters. This is why they needed to lose. These are the faces of your Republican leaders. John Thune is just a skin suit for Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell is still the old crow, dark lord of the Senate. He's still running everything. Sure, he stepped down from leadership, and by that we mean actually literally having a brain aneurysm and having to be wheeled around like a potato vegetable every single day. But he runs John Cornyn. John Cornyn is his lapdog. He sock puppets John Cornyn and John Thune. And John Thune spent tens of millions of dollars trying to save RINO, despised, despicable John Cornyn. Gun-grabbing, amnesty-loving John Cornyn in the state of Texas. Why? Because the Senate is just one big club, and you're not in it. They hate the voters, and I can prove it to you. I can prove it to you because I know a very fun story, because I know the people that actually engaged in illegality in Washington, D.C. This is the story of Lisa Murkowski. Lisa Murkowski is the RINO-iest witch of all of them. She's the worst. She's not a Republican. She's an embittered, angry, nasty feminist. She won in Alaska because her daddy and her little family are corrupt as hell and effectively bought her a Senate seat. She was miserable. Nobody likes her. The voters certainly hate her. And they kicked her out. They kicked her out of her seat in 2010. She lost in a landslide to a Tea Party candidate. And Lisa Murkowski decided to go to John Cornyn, decided to run and scream and screech to Mitch McConnell. And the two of them at the time devised an evil plot to save Lisa Murkowski. You know what they did? They ran a write-in campaign, spent tens of millions of dollars on what many allege are illegal vote gathering operations, going up to Eskimo villages and stuff, speaking with people who don't even speak English, right? Like manipulating ballots, faking ballots. It's all in the lawsuits. You can see it. They've been sued for this. But they ran a write-in campaign and they saved their little pawn, Lisa Murkowski. Why? It's not like the Democrats were going to win the seat. They weren't. Democrats were not going to win the seat. It is because they didn't want to deal with an actual Tea Party patriot in the Senate. They didn't need another one of us annoying Tea Party, which is the early bedrock of MAGA, in the Senate. They didn't want to deal with us. They didn't want the message to be sent to the voters that we can actually demand better of our senators. And so they did everything they could. John Cornyn ran this operation. John Cornyn was in charge of the NRSC when this happened, ran this operation in order to drag Lisa Murkowski in most likely illegal ways over the finish line in Alaska by a couple of votes. Joe Miller, the Tea Party Republican nominee, sued over it. The rigged courts effectively blocked him and certified the election, and they were able to install Lisa Murkowski against the will of the voters. Well, guess what happened last night? John Cornyn got bit in the ass over this. The wages of sin, ladies and gentlemen. Because it's Lisa Murkowski. Every senator, so many senators. I've got dozens of senators that call me and tell me everything that's going on behind the scenes. Who are these guys? What do they tell me? They tell me that it's Lisa Murkowski who's the number one psychotic voice, the witch casting spells on the Save America Act. The reason why they couldn't bring it to a vote was because Lisa Murkowski was going to vote against it. And that would be such bad optics for Republicans in the Senate. Lisa Murkowski screams and throws hysterical meltdowns in their little behind the doors meetings. She hates voter ID so much. She claims it's because of Eskimos and because Eskimos can't get IDs. Shut up, lady. And when you're getting welfare, it's pretty easy to get an ID, right? When you need to put your information down to get federal aid in Alaska, pretty easy to get an ID. Lisa Murkowski doesn't care about that. Lisa Murkowski hates the voter ID because she wins on fraud. And with the help of John Cornyn. And it really does beg the question, how many of these senators win on fraud? And is that why they're not passing the Save America Act? You could have just passed the Save America Act. Man, they're learning today. And so John Cornyn is done for. And what is the major lesson of the night? The major lesson of the night is that with strong Republican leaders, you can do great things. If you listen to your base and just pass the Save America Act, no senators would have lost. Bill Cassidy would probably be fine. I mean, who knows? But if you don't listen to your base and Donald Trump, the king of listening to his base, look at this. Look at this record for President Trump. Check it out.
Trump endorsed on the U.S. House level 101 times. He's won 101 times. Trump endorsed U.S. Senate. He's won 8 times. And we're about to find out tonight whether or not that will be number 9, Laura.
9 out of 9 for U.S. Senate. 8 out of 8 for U.S. governor, 101 out of 101. That's 117 different endorsements. Donald Trump's 117 for 117. That's a 1,000% win rate for President Trump. Donald Trump is king of the Republican Party, Christ king of our universe and our Lord and Savior. But for our earthly purposes, Donald Trump is the king of the Republican Party. No kings. Yeah, right. There is a king. And the kingmaker for our earthly plane here in politics is Donald Trump. Trump has the only politician in my lifetime that garners this level of support, love, patriotic care from his base. His people love him. I travel all around the country. Unlike some in Podcastistan, I actually go out into the public. I talk with real people. I make physical appearances in Dallas, in Montana. I'm going to California. I'm going to Kentucky. I'm going to Texas. I go and I speak and I meet with people, doing events here in Florida. And you know what everybody tells me? They don't agree with Trump 100% of the time. Sometimes he says a naughty word or posts a naughty meme. But they love his policies. They love the feeling of having a fighter that understands them. And what is Trump's endorsement of Ken Paxton other than an absolute and total endorsement of the will of the people? This is the will of the people of Texas. This is the will. That's what the state looks like. This is a dominant landslide and a historic defeat. Donald Trump understands the will of the people of Texas. Trump put out a statement this morning, and he was kind of nice to John. Do you have that statement? Hey, Alex, can you grab for me? If it's not already, can you just pop it over? He was like really nice to John Thune. It's like, what's up, John Thune? You're fine, dude. But he said, I needed to support the guy who's going to win and the guy who represented my base. And that is obviously Ken Paxton, the undisputed king of the Republicans. Massey is gone. Cornyn is gone. Cassidy is gone. All Indiana state senators gone. The Bush dynasty gone. Cheney dynasty gone. Adam Kinzinger gone. Jim Acosta gone. Stephen Colbert gone. Donald Trump, a political and cultural force unlike anything else. And you know what? The reason why I can lock in with this, the reason why I didn't lose my mind over the last couple months when there were these like constant psyops funded by now we know now billions of dollars of foreign cash going to your favorite podcasters, going to your favorite commentators. Guess whose name you will never see on any of those little lists or any of those FAR reports or sweating bullets on any of that stuff? Expose them all. I will not take a penny from anyone ever because I care so much about this audience, this nation. This is it. This is where I'm going to raise my children. This is where I was born. And this is the dirt I'm going to get buried in. That's it. I don't have a place to escape to. I don't have a home in Qatar or some place to be, some sultan offering me this or that, or some prime minister offering me this or that. No. This is it. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we're going to fight for. And we survived the PSYOPs by doing what? This massive multi-billion-dollar operation to depress MAGA, to break MAGA up, to destroy President Trump's winning coalition. What was the point of it? The point of it is that they're desperate. They know that an America First movement, a unified America First movement, will destroy communism in this country forever. That if Texas got their act together and elected guys like Mays Middleton and Ken Paxton, if Texas became Texas again, they started prosecuting fraudsters, they started criminalizing Sharia law as they outright should, they started limiting the number of foreigners that can come in and displace actual Texans and Texas culture, that you would save the state. And that is something that is existential to them. They're losing power. And what was our secret weapon? Our secret weapon was you. And I just want to thank you. If we met you on the road over the last couple of weeks or last couple of months, if we connected with you, I thank you for encouraging us, for stiffening our spine and our backbone to fight for the president and to fight for these wins, because we don't have another option. You and I don't have another option. Maybe some people have summer houses in Dubai. I don't. I just want to pay my mortgage and be able to take my kids to the park. That's it. And so that's our driving force. And President Trump, it was President Trump or Kamala Harris. We don't have the luxury of sitting there and twisting our little mustaches and tamping in our pipes and smoking and sitting in our little leather chairs and on top of all of our gold bullion, all of our money. We already have our fortunes, and wondering and pontificating about how wonderful a utopia could be. We have to live in reality. Reality is that John Cornyn betrays his voters. Thomas Massie betrays his voters by betraying the movement that brought us all here. And the only movement that we have to save America. And it's not perfect. And mistakes get made. And that's human nature. As a Christian, you understand these things. So why is it so hard for people to get on board with the bandwagon? And we're winning, actually, which is a wonderful thing. We should all be very thankful that we're winning. And that's a wonderful thing. I mean, I got to tell you, man, I'm so done with the people that took the bait, that took the pill, that took the payouts. Because right now is really exciting. There's a lot of good things going down. And we have a president that's locked in. We should support our president. He's earned our trust. He took a bullet for us. And there are very, very positive energies right now. And we could actually encourage the Republican Party to be this strong. Let me go ahead and check in with my producers here. Sorry, I've been ranting. Okay, here we go. Oh, great. We have the excellent Brandon Gill set. Fantastic, ladies and gentlemen. Just really quickly, look at what could happen. Are you from the Deep South? Look what could happen if we had strength, if we had force of cause and clarity of mission, like Brandon Gill has. Congressman Brandon Gill from Texas, ladies and gentlemen. Look at what we could do. Texas did this. This is the Deep South. If the party was ridded of this, and I want to go hard in on a very specific style of Republican. I'm going to call him the George H.W. Bush. Country club, deep state, limp-wristed, doughy, weakling, fat Republicans who have only ever known the cushy, cozy life inside of their little plantation homes or their little suburbs in the Deep South, where they have Republican supermajorities that are really made up of just a bunch of Democrats, because that's the only way you can win in the state because of the big flip. But whatever, really, they're just like a bunch of squishy Republicans that are so comfortable and so silver spooned and so caviared up. And they have their 2.5 children, and they just sit there fat and happy, not understanding. They never leave their county in Alabama. And they don't understand. I travel to San Francisco. I travel to Philadelphia. I travel to Detroit. I travel to Baltimore. I see what it's like in Washington, D.C. I go into the halls of Congress and into the belly of the beast. I know what the left is capable of. And these weakling Republicans, which is John Cornyn always constantly wanting a pat on the head by the corporate media, constantly wanting to be a lapdog for corporate interests and lobbyists and the Democrats in D.C. John Cornyn, these type of Republicans have lost for us so much. We've had at least 7 Senate seats stolen in Arizona, 2 in Arizona, 2 in Georgia, 1 in Wisconsin, 1 in Michigan, 1 in Nevada, that John Cornyn and Mitch McConnell refused to fight for, refused to back the America First candidate because they didn't want to work with them. They'd rather lose and set the country ablaze than pass the Save America Act, because they know it'd be the end of their elections because so many of them use fraud in order to get in. These weakling Republicans that didn't do this to the South, this could have been the South, this election, and we would have had 223 as a basement for Republicans in the House. But instead, we decided to give participation trophies to DEI communists. DEI ghetto communists, because of our weakness. And we are going to exercise that weakness out of the Republican Party with our movement that is represented by the great Brandon Gill, ladies and gentlemen. Joining us live from Texas right now, triumphant, the man who endorsed Ken Paxton very early in the race, the great Congressman Brandon Gill. I mean, you were early, Brandon. You saw this thing from 1,000 yards away. Talk to me about the RINO hunt you went on last night.
Well, it was certainly an incredible night. I mean, that was a 28-point victory. I think, we all went into it optimistic, and our expectations were certainly blown out of the water. It was a phenomenal night for conservatives. And the reality is that the people of Texas are looking for somebody who's going to go to Washington and who's going to fight for them. Who's going to fight to keep the border secure? Who's going to fight for deportations? Who's going to fight for the Save America Act? And not just to say the right things, but to actually get it to the president's desk. That's the goal of all of this. It's not, it's not cheap political messaging. It is to get good legislation passed. And I think that's exactly what Ken Paxton is going to do. And I think voters of Texas recognize that.
So you were at the election night party. You gave a speech, a rousing speech. What was the energy like? What was the message that Texas sent last night?
The energy was phenomenal. I mean, people were fired up. It felt as close to nothing can match a Trump rally. You and I both know that. But it was as close to a Trump rally as anybody can get. These are people who have been waiting for somebody like Ken Paxton to step into the fight in the Senate for quite some time, and finally got it. And I think a lot of people felt quite vindicated, I should say. It was been quite the primary season in Texas. I mean, this has been the most expensive primary in history, Senate primary in history. I think people were happy to see that come to a very satisfying conclusion.
What does it say about the people in Texas who are sick of having their state colonized by foreign cultures and foreign peoples, of course, which John Cornyn wished to give amnesty to in a Spanish ad, which might have been the death knell for John Cornyn as far as I'm concerned. It was certainly a turning point in the race. But the people of Texas are really sick and tired of Texas not being Texas anymore. It is being carved up and sold off to globalists and the highest or lowest bidder, and it's made life really miserable for the people who have to experience it.
Yeah, well, I think I certainly agree with what you're articulating there, and I think that is the Trump message. That is the message that President Trump has been pushing ever since he got into politics about 10 years ago. And the reality is that that's where the American people are. It's certainly where the people of Texas are. They want their country back. They want America to be America. They want America to be American culturally. And that's something that I think they expect their representatives in Washington to also want. And I think that was a big part of the message as well, is that they want somebody who wants to preserve American culture and preserve American heritage, and which is a core part of being a conservative, by the way. But that's something that the president has talked a lot about. That's something that I think is core to the MAGA movement. And the reality is that the people are with President Trump, and they want somebody who is going to fight alongside President Trump to get his agenda passed, whether it's the Save America Act, whether it's immigration more broadly, whether it's anything else. They want somebody who's going to have his back because they know that he is looking out for the American people. You know, one thing you saw President Trump endorse Paxton a few weeks ago. And, you know, the left likes to talk about how President Trump's influence is waning. He's a lame duck president. I mean, if the past month or two have shown you anything about American politics, especially GOP politics, it's that President Trump is the most powerful force in American political history, possibly in all of American political history. It's that his endorsement is worth its political weight in gold. That's why everybody seeks President Trump's endorsement, because that's where the people are. And the people look to President Trump because they know he's fighting for him. And I think that endorsement went a really long ways in this Senate race as well.
Yes. So what didn't go a long ways is the tens of millions of dollars that the Senate Republicans spent on trying to manipulate Texas voters into buying something they didn't want, a product that has betrayed them again and again and again, which is John Cornyn. But why would we light all of this precious donor money on fire? Nobody has unlimited donor cash. This certainly isn't the first time that Senate Republicans have behaved sort of like a club of lords and ladies that believe that they have divine right to their seats, and they'll just spend hundreds of millions of dollars defending themselves, even though they behave like trash and are despised by their voter. Lisa Murkowski is a good example of this. John Cornyn is the one who staged a write-in campaign when Lisa Murkowski lost in a landslide to the Republican Tea Party candidate. So instead of dealing with a candidate that is of the people and that carries forward the message of reform to the establishment, they'll spend all the money in the world in order to install their RINOs. It didn't work this time. What does that say, Brandon?
Well, it says that at the end of the day, money doesn't vote. Super PACs don't vote. It's the American people who vote. It's the GOP base who has power in the Republican Party, who ultimately gets to determine who they send to Washington. And that's a lesson that I think every Republican and every politician should keep in mind, which is that it's the people who have the final say. Not corporations, not super PACs, not big moneyed interests. It's the American people who want their country back. And those are the ones who are going to show up to the polls, especially in a primary runoff, who are going to determine who wins elections like this. You know, you can put it this way, is that if there's an election and it's the people versus super PACs, the people are going to win. If it's the base versus the establishment, the base is going to win because that's where the people are. If it's we the people versus the swamp, we the people are going to win. Now, we the people have to turn out, and we have to make sure that we get to the polls, that we put in the work to win. And we're going to have to do that this fall because I think Senator Paxton, soon to be Senator Paxton, is going to win this fall. But we got to make sure that we continue to fight for him because he's got a complete weirdo that he's running against that I think the people of Texas are going to adamantly reject. But we got to make sure that we get the message out. So that we can see Senator Paxton soon.
So I want to talk about Tallarico, but I just want to pause for a moment because I've never seen, as much as I've seen like the attacks on Tallarico, I've actually seen in my timeline far more energy against John Thune. You know, you could have just passed the Save America Act and given the American people something that they wanted. Something like 90% of Republicans, like I think 70% of Democrats and independents also wanted it. But the Republicans in the Senate, not only did they not try, they didn't even give it any effort. There was not even any strategy behind it. They could have done it 7 different ways. Democrats were able to pass Obamacare. Nobody wanted Obamacare, and Democrats were able to shove that down our throats. So what's the difference there, Brandon?
Yeah, there's a difference between where the American people are at and where many people in the Senate are. And you're exactly right. Nothing illustrates this better than the Save America Act. This is a bill, you're right. There are a lot of different ways that you can get the Save America Act through the Senate. I think that the talking filibuster is the most appropriate way. I think that it's a way that actually could get done. I think it's something that with enough, call it pressure, or with enough negotiating, you could get every Republican senator to get on board with the talking filibuster. But ultimately, the Senate didn't do that. And that's something that whenever you have a piece of legislation that 80% of the country agrees with, including a large number of Democrats, that Republicans view, rightfully so, as an existential piece of legislation, one we have to get passed. We have to make sure that illegal aliens are not voting in our elections. We have to make sure that you just have to show a photo ID before you can vote. That's basic. It's common sense. If we can't get a bill like that passed, then I think Republicans rightfully look at that and say, we need to figure out, we need to take an alternative route, call it. And that means going through the Republican primaries. But all the Senate had to do is get the Save America Act passed. And we can do that. We could have done it this year by utilizing a talking filibuster. Senator Mike Lee has been extremely eloquent on this issue. All you have to do is force the Senate. If the Senate wants to be the deliberative body, the body that actually debates and discusses legislation and is thoughtful, then make them actually debate legislation by using a real talking filibuster. And if you do that, if you force the senators to go to the Senate floor and to debate legislation, then that actually provides a mechanism to pass legislation like the Save America Act with a 50-vote threshold, which, by the way, is the way the Senate should operate. The Senate should operate as a deliberative body. This, using a talking filibuster both preserves the institution of the Senate, as the senators like to say, and allows us to get good legislation across the finish line. But again, they refused to do that. And I think that had a lot, I think that was a big reason that the president came in here.
Do you think that John Thune has lost all credibility with the party? Do you think that his leadership is in jeopardy?
Well, I'll leave his leadership up to the Senate and to the senators. But I do think that the Save America Act is a core piece of legislation that the Senate needs to get passed and needs to figure out. There's still time to do it. And I hope that they will get it done. We've still got a few months before the midterms. And I think that this is something that voters are going to be looking at in the midterms. They're going to want to see, did Republicans deliver on this piece of legislation?
I think that Republicans look around and see their neighborhoods changing existentially. They look around and seeing their culture slipping. They look around and see young people without hope. And Republicans see that, and then they turn on TV and they think, well, wait a second, maybe passing voter ID would be a way to get safe and secure elections. And then third worlders couldn't rig our elections with the help of outside dark money groups, from who knows where, Eastern Europe. I don't know where the Soroses actually live, but that's a very bad way to run our elections. So we could just do that. And then they turn on the TV and they see a senator who's like 80 going on and on about their precious institutions and traditions. Yeah. And how important it is to be principled and to have a conscience and to giving these mewling wood panel lectures about how precious their institutions are. And Americans are like, F that. They get so sick of these people not living in reality and not seeing the world as it is. And by the way, the world that they've destroyed, these senators, many of them, voted to destroy, voted to hollow and gut American Rust Belt, American manufacturing, voted to offshore all their jobs, destroy their dollar, and increase the debt every single year. And so I think that ultimately that's what it is. And I guess I just I don't know, maybe a word about messaging here, because you're so good at it yourself. What time is it exactly for the Republican Party?
Yeah, that's the exact question we got to be asking is, what time is it? Is it the time to save the country, or is it time to go back to the old ways? You're right. There's been a long time whenever both parties agreed, for instance, on issues like amnesty, that is the proper way of coming up with immigration reform, just to use as an example, or that we should hollow out our manufacturing base, as you pointed out. basically give it to our number one geopolitical adversary, China, under the banner of free trade. Neither one of those things have been good for the American people in virtually any sense whatsoever. But now we're at a point where if elected officials do not get the picture, if you don't get where we're at, if you don't get that mass migration has fundamentally transformed portions of this country, if you don't get that people have been coming into this country illegally, and you have election systems across the country that do not stop them from voting in our elections, then we need to replace you. We need people in Washington who get that, who get what time it is, who get that this is our chance to save our country. And if we don't, we're going to get to the point where there's no turning back, where we brought in so many people. Our election systems have so many issues that it's very difficult to turn that around. We are not there yet. We've got time, but it requires people who are willing to fight for our country and do the things that they said they were going to do on the campaign trail. We want America to remain American. We don't want it to be foreign. We don't want our communities overrun by foreigners. We don't want to see that the history and our heritage be spat upon by the left and by people coming into this country illegally, as it has been so often. And now is our chance. And you talked about the institution.
Our traditions.
Right. What I would say is that if the senators want to preserve the institution of the Senate, fine, you do that by actually listening to the American people. In other words, I think that what they're doing right now is far more destructive to the institution of the Senate by ignoring the American people, because they're creating an institution built upon a foundation of sand that is going to get washed away. And the reality is, too, that most people outside of the Beltway are not very concerned about the institution of the Senate. What they're concerned about is stopping illegal aliens from voting in our elections. That's what they care about.
Yeah. Isn't that an institution we should preserve? Isn't that didn't that come before the Senate? Isn't that more important? Right? American citizenship and what that means and who that is and what that is and the rights that are endowed to us. That's before the Senate. And that's only preserved if Americans are the only ones determining our future. Yep. Right now, the third world determines our future. And what you get is a Tallarico. And so I would just want to close with this and give you an opportunity to now lay the groundwork for the next 6 months ahead to election date in November. Who is James Tallarico? Does he represent Texas? Do most people in Texas think that God is non-binary and that Jesus loves abortions and trans?
That's the question, and the answer is obviously no. I mean, James Tallarico is one of the weirdest guys who could ever possibly run in American politics, especially in Texas. And this is a guy who has stated publicly that there are not just two sexes, there are 6 sexes, actually, and science tells us that. I think we need to be very clear, Mr. Tallarico, if you believe that, why don't you explain to the people of Texas what these other 4 sexes are? My favorite was whenever he was going on a podcast recently, and the podcaster asked him, Mr. Tallarico, what are something that you really love that's not friends or family? And he could have answered and said, I love barbecue or football or, hanging out with my kids or whatever. And the first thing that popped into this guy's mind was trans kids. That's what he said. He said, I just love trans kids. You think, what kind of grown adult man daydreams about transgender children? How absolutely bizarre and perverted is that? And that's the guy that Democrats are running to be a United States senator from Texas. I mean, this is the most low-T candidate you could possibly find. I mean, not to mention everything that he's talked about having to have a deep emotional reckoning with his own whiteness and his own masculinity, how he's talked about how our southern border should have a welcome mat on it, how he's talked about how police officers and prisons promote cycles of violence in our violent institutions. I mean, this guy is not only the most far left candidate the left could have found, but an absolute weirdo, just a total freak show. And that's who Democrats think can win in tech. It shows you how out of touch the left is with reality. But with that said, we're going to have to make sure everybody in Texas knows who this guy is and knows what the stakes are. I think we're going to win this seat. I think you're going to see Senator Ken Paxton within the next year. But we do have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, you said people need to know the stakes. And in closing here, I did see a clip of him this morning saying that he's getting rid of steak and he's vegan, and his entire campaign is now investing in vegan. He's sworn off beef and meat. I mean, is that disqualifying in the state of Texas?
You know, most Texans...
a constitutional amendment against that, I think.
That's exactly right. There are a few things Texans take more pride in than their barbecue. And I think having an avowed vegan nominee who's running a meatless campaign, whatever that means, who even thinks that way? What is a meatless campaign? Whatever that means, that's James Tallarico. So I'm going to eat my barbecue, and so with soon-to-be Senator Ken Paxton, and the left can do whatever kind of weird stuff they want to do, but we're going to win.
We really look forward. I know that the timing didn't work out, but we really look forward to seeing you at the GOP convention in Texas. I think we're going to be at an event together there and doing rallies up until Election Day. I look forward to helping as much as possible. We must defend this seat. We need to send a message. We've already sent a message to the establishment. Now we need to send a message to the rest of the nation that Texas is Texas. Thank you so much, Brandon and Congressman. Everybody follow the congressman. You probably already do. He's got nearly 400,000 subscribers here on X. Make sure that you are one of them. Godspeed, Brandon.
Thanks for having me, Benny.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Always great to have our friends from Texas on. I got to tell you, man, just two states that are holding it down, Texas and the state of Florida. Texas already made an absolutely exceptional decision to send another thorn in Trump's paw packing, and that would be Dan Crenshaw. The man who beat Dan Crenshaw will be on in just one moment. Before that, ladies and gentlemen, Advantage Gold is your gold partner, our gold partner, and can make sure that you have a golden future. There are some really great numbers out of the stock market right now. Oil has crashed down through the floor. I just want to show you this. There's going to be, you can keep her up. Look at that. Oil back down $78 a barrel. Crude futures, the stock market rip roaring. Now is the time to diversify. I predict that we will have an incredibly strong economy. I think that it is a wonderful opportunity to also be investing in precious metals. Advantage Gold can help you do that. I trust Advantage Gold, America's top precious rated metals company. Right now, they're giving our listeners a free gold investment kit. Text Benny to 85545 right now. That's Benny to 85545. Inside, you'll discover how to move your retirement or savings into physical gold and silver with Advantage Gold. No cost, no obligation. Text Benny to 85545 and have something real in that portfolio. As gold, look at that, as oil, liquid gold, right? They call it, goes timber. And why is that? Because they are now allowing boats to travel through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran and Iranian media has announced a deal, effectively, that the president has put forward. And the terms of the deal are being reported out by Iranian media. No word yet from the White House, but the deal, it sounds amazing. They're going to reestablish all shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. It will return to pre-war levels. The U.S. Navy will lift its blockade, and the U.S. military forces will withdraw from the vicinity. Fine by me. Bring our boys home, as far as I'm concerned. They'll restore the number of commercial transit ships through Hormuz. Iranian state media says military vessels not included. The management of routing of the ship traffic through Hormuz will be handled in a cooperative partnership between Iran and Oman. Those are these two nations right here. Oman is an American ally right here. There are American bases in Oman. Iran obviously controls all of this, the largest shore front to the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. So it's just putting it on paper what already exists, which is these nations control the entry point to and from the Gulf of Oman and the Persian Gulf. It just is what it is. It doesn't include anything about nuclear weapons yet, but Iran has said in recent days that they are perfectly fine. They don't want a nuclear program. They don't want a nuclear weapon. They're happy to give up their enriched uranium. That is why the stock market is soaring right now. Oil, by the way, crashing down here, $78 a barrel. At $65 a barrel, that equates to $2 a gallon gasoline for many places in America. So there you go. That's why the markets are behaving like this. Very good news on many fronts. MAGA is winning. The president is delivering. And now, ladies and gentlemen, a candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives who has delivered and has primaried successfully, Dan Crenshaw, Steve Toth, joining the program live now from Texas. Steve, I have no idea if you're in the oil business, so I'm sorry to break your heart if you're losing out here on oil crashing through the floor. But anyway, I think it's good to have everything stabilized, and it looks like the Texas Republican Party is stabilizing itself, getting rid of a lot of rhinos. You're part of that. What happened last night?
You tell me, Benny. I mean, we had Ken winning by 10. We didn't have him wiping up the floor with John Cornyn. I'm just ecstatic, buddy. I really am. It's kind of like when we beat Dan Crenshaw, right? We would have been happy with a 5-point win, but to get a 16-point victory is historic over someone like that. And for Ken to get the size of the victory that he did over John Cornyn is historic. And I really believe that the people of Texas sent a really strong message to DC. You can go and spend $160 million to protect your own, to protect a swamp creature like John Cornyn, but you can't overcome the will of the people. And I just hope that this really infuses a great deal of hope in the people of Texas, that when you turn out and you show up, it matters and we'll get stuff done.
Yes. It does seem like Texas was under constant assault and is under constant assault because there's no state that the left would like to flip harder than Texas. If they are able to flip Texas purple or blue, well, that's game over for Republicans. And they've been going overboard, I think, on manipulating some of the Republican members like Dan Crenshaw against the president and against the will of MAGA. Can you speak to that? And where is that realignment happening?
So, so it was 20 years ago when conservatives found that if we work hard and we come together, we can throw the Democrats out of office. It was 10 years ago that when we came together, we found out that we could start beating and decisively beating these moderates and throwing them out of office.
Yes.
And I think the pinnacle of this was last night. And it was in my campaign against Dan, and it was in the campaign against John Cornyn. And what we now have to do, Benny, is we've got to show that we as conservatives can come together and be effective at running the country together. There's such a huge difference between Republicans and Democrats. Democrats are like trail horses. Each one sticks its nose into the horse's ass in front of them, and they just blindly follow along. And that really works for them. We are like Mustangs, right? We're biting and kicking each other, and it's disruptive. We are disruptive, and there's a beautiful thing about disruption, right? It makes way for change. It makes way for growth. Makes way for opportunity. Makes way for new free thinkers. But at the end of the day, too, we've got to get under the strong leadership of this president so that we can go and move together in one direction to truly help the American people.
And so what would that look like in Washington, D.C.? You'll be in Washington, D.C. very soon. What kind of energy are you going to bring to this that's going to be quite different from a Dan Crenshaw or a John Cornyn?
When I came into the Texas House in 2013, we were the biggest freshman class since the Sharpstown scandal of the 70s. And this time in 27, we will be one of the biggest freshman classes in a long time. And the message that I'm going to bring to the rest of my freshman class is, guys, put all your agendas, put all your hopes, dreams, legislative priorities aside, and let's focus on codifying President Trump's executive orders and getting behind this president strongly and firmly. If you want to protect the United States, sorry to say this, but screw the institutions of Washington, D.C. I don't care, Ben Sass or John Thune, what you have to say about protecting these institutions. We have absolutely got to drill down, and we have got to have the same fervor, the same excitement, the same passion to change America that the Democrats have. The big problem with the Republicans has always been, when we win elections, we take office. When Democrats win elections, they wield power. We have got to wield power. The secret sauce of why President Trump is so embraced by Americans is that he wants to bring change. He doesn't want to become Democrat light. He doesn't want us to be, as an institution, as congressmen, to be Democrat light. He wants us to be bold in our leadership for the conservative movement.
And so what agenda items will you be carrying to Washington, D.C.? Like, what will you be championing? Obviously, the Save America Act is a critical one for our audience. But how will you differentiate yourself from a Dan Crenshaw?
So Save America Act it's one of my biggest passions. So Trump endorsed me in 2022 and 2024 in the Texas House because, as an example, I wanted to be able to do forensic audits in the state of Texas. Most states do not allow it. Most of the states will preserve their election material for 18 months past the election, but with no authority to actually open it up and look at it and to do a forensic audit. And states will say, well, we have this ability to do these risk limiting audits, but that's not a forensic audit. And we need the ability to do forensic audits. Article 1, Section 3 of the Constitution says the states hold the right to the place, means, and time for their elections. But the federal government needs to step in and say, yes, but with that in mind, we got to make sure that we actually have Americans that are voting, and only Americans that are voting, and that are only voting once, number one. And number two, I really want to see us move and push the states and encourage the states to go to a voting period, not early voting, then election day. And we've got to vote on a currency grade paper that is counted by a dumb, in other words, not an electromechanical counter and not a machine count. It's the only way we're going to honestly be able to preserve this institution. There's just too much cheating. If five counties in the United States can swing an election like we saw in 2020, we have no future.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think we have no future if we don't secure the ballots, but then also secure who's voting on the ballots. And,
right.
If it's not Americans voting, then you're a conquered nation. Then foreign powers are ruling over you already. We might as well be someone else's colony, right? We might as well be a colony of Somalia or China, if that's the case. So you must have voter ID. This is something that I think a lot of people are concerned about in Texas. Obviously, Texas has had some really strong voting laws that have been passed. They could be stronger, but Texas elections are run pretty sharply. You served, though, with James Tallarico, and you know this guy really well. The reason why you have to have secure elections is we already see Barack Obama campaigning with him. We already see sort of the machine gathering around him. We saw Stephen Colbert, fluffing him on corporate TV. They're clearly all in on this guy, and they'll pull out all the stops. Who is James Tallarico? What is this guy capable of? How dark does it get with this guy? You actually know him.
Yeah. So people think that because it's Texas that our Democrats must be more kind and more Southern gentlemanly and more moderate and more conservative than New York Democrats. Nothing could be further from the truth. To give you an idea, a woman that sat on the House floor in front of me, her name was Sean Theory. She was the one lone sane Democrat in the state of Texas. And Sean voted with me against the genital mutilation of children. And James Tallarico and the Democrats in Austin teamed up against her. They spent $1.5 million to remove Sean and to get her replaced by a pro-LGBTQ transgender loving person that actually has transgender staff members in her office. These are biological males that use the ladies' restrooms. And that is James Tallarico. This is like his number one issue. And Benny, before he decided he wanted to be in the Senate, he was this nasty, caustic, angry, weird man that from the back or front mic said some of the most egregious and ridiculous things. Look, when Ted Cruz went up against Colin Allred, Ted at this point was 8 points behind in the polls, 8 points behind. We waited, we got closer to the election until about 2 weeks before early voting. We released Colin Allred's voting record that he had voted to allow biological males into girls' sports. And Colin Allred went from winning by 8 to losing by 8. When people find out that James Tallarico wants to allow biological males into our daughters' restrooms and showers, this is what he has voted for, Benny. This is a guy that has said, screw what Martin Luther King said about judging people by the content of their character versus the color of their skin. This is a guy that wants us all to be judged by the color of our skin. I mean, no one took me to task more when I passed legislation banning critical race theory in the state of Texas. No one took me to task more from the back microphone than James Tallarico did. He is an absolute fruitcake. Can I say that?
There's no other way to describe him, because you go through and you look at the things that he says. God is non-binary. Jesus wants abortions.
Yeah.
There's nothing about abortions in the Bible, so they're totally permitted. I mean, you just said that. I don't eat meat. What the hell is this guy? I dream of trans kids. Well, this guy's an absolute fruitcake, freak show. I don't know how much of a manipulation and propaganda machine they're going to have to like build around this guy. That you can see it's already being built. They're already going to do, I think, their level-headed best to try and cheat him or pull him across the finish line. What would be your word to Texas voters about this?
Do your homework, and so that you can understand who this guy truly is. He is a dark person. I've said to friends of mine long before he decided to run for the Senate, I said, this is one of the darkest souls of anybody that I have ever met. As a pastor, I'm a recovering Baptist pastor. And this guy is one of the darkest souls of anybody that I have ever met. Take him very seriously, and do your homework, and then get your butt out and vote, because we cannot allow James Tallarico to represent the state of Texas in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, clearly. And, I'm on some level, I got to tell you to Steve, I'm like thrilled about it. I think that it would be far harder, or like maybe more entertaining in like a hilarious way. Cause like AOC, she's hysterical. She's a meme. It's funny. Bernie Sanders is like kind of funny. Like you listen to him and you like chuckle. James Tallarico actually shows where the true heart of the Democrat Party is, how warped and manipulated it is, how blasphemous it is, and how hysterical it actually is. And so I'm glad, like, actually, that this guy is going to be the face of their candidacies. I think it's going to expose so much. Agreed, completely. Yeah. Yep. I mean, Jasmine Crockett. I mean, I miss her, to be honest with you. I miss the content. I really do. I miss the content. I too bad. I don't know what she's going to run for next, but
I served with her. I served with her as well, right? And
yeah.
And you sit down with Jasmine, you sit down and talk with her. She sounds like a Valley girl, right? Then all of a sudden, she goes on television and she's like, down here in the ghetto, things are really awful. And I can't do her, but I'm, seriously, she's like this. If you close your eyes, you'd swear you're talking to a Valley girl. Then roll a camera in front of her and.
Yeah, and suddenly you get Real Housewives of Atlanta. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We got it. Wesley Hunt's coming up after you, so I have a feeling he's going to have something to say about that. Thank you.
Best. I love Wesley.
Thank you so much, Steve. God bless you, man. Here's Steve's social media. Go ahead and follow him. He's headed to Washington, D.C. He's a man who's going, well, that's the price of oil, but yeah, he's a man who's absolutely, he's got 40,000+ followers He's going to be a rock star in D.C. when he gets there, and has been cleaning out. He's been rhino hunting. It's legal in Texas. You can go hunt endangered rhinos in Texas.
Yeah, baby.
Steve's a marksman. So thank you very much, Steve. God bless you.
God bless you, Benny. Thanks for being a truth speaker, buddy.
My man. I think I had a light go out in the studio. That was very bing. That's all right, ladies and gentlemen. We keep rocking and rolling. It's a great time to be speaking with our dear friend, a man of extreme principles, a man who showed absolute and total and pure class in this race, the great Congressman Wesley Hunt. First Rumble Wallet, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure that you are locking in at your future. Make sure that you are supporting the creator economy and that you are supporting free speech. Rumble Wallet allows you to do this by tipping your favorite creators and having a secure place to store your crypto. Crypto started as a niche, but now it's mainstream. Faster payments, more control, fewer middlemen. It's not hype. This is where things are going. With Rumble Wallet, you can buy Bitcoin, hold dollar-backed stablecoins, or even own digital gold backed by real gold all in one place. The setup is simple, and it connects right there to all of your payment processing. It's not about the amount. It's about getting in and understanding what's coming next. So do this right now. Scan the QR code, click the link in the description, download Rumble Wallet. You can take control of your money today. Get started with Rumble Wallet today. Rumble Wallet is a technology provider and not a custodial service. See terms at wallet.rumble.com. Always make sure you read the fine print. There you go. Okay. A man who read the room, a man who read it well, and a man who behaved deeply honorably, and we know him to be an honorable man, is the great Wesley Hunt, who joins us live right now. You win. You won. You won the class act, the Gentleman of the Year award in how you behaved in this Senate race. You did unbelievable when we had the first election day, then through the primary runoffs, you came on our program. You said you're going to give the president the respect that he deserves if the president decides to endorse. And then I saw Trump's endorsement and I looked at your timeline. It was like 1 second later. 1 second. It was like you were just sitting there waiting. Bam! I saw it. I didn't miss it. Okay, we don't miss much. So well done, Congressman. You're probably ecstatic about the results last night.
First of all, I'm absolutely ecstatic as to what the results were last night. And you were right. You know, you talk about doing things with humility and being a good human being. I got that from my parents. I got that from a loving father, retired lieutenant colonel. And I got that from a loving mother that said, you know what, you could always keep your head up, always try to do the right thing, and the Lord will always bless you. And I got this race to give the people of Texas an option. I didn't get this race to snub Ken or to snub John. I felt like I was the best person for the job. The people of Texas spoke. But they spoke even louder because they really want a conservative warrior. And once I realized that President Trump was going to be fully in the camp of General Paxton, it made this decision very easy for me, even though I was already leaning in that direction anyway. And at this point, what I want our party to understand here very, very clearly is this: we have got to come together. I don't care where you fit on the Republican spectrum. I don't care. I know we're in Texas, we are going rhino hunting, and it is quite legal. But I don't care if you like Ken. I don't care if you like John. I don't care if you like me. At the end of the day, we all bleed red. We are part of the red Republican Party. We have got to come together in the next few months because James Tallarico is going to be very well funded by the Democrats, and we cannot take this for granted. Texas and Florida are the last two free states we have got to represent as a consolidated front with the America First agenda that has clearly spoken. We have got to stand together to beat James Tallarico.
So what are you going to be hitting the trail? You going to be campaigning as well alongside Ken?
I will do whatever General asked me to do to make sure that we get him across the finish line. And at the end of the day, the people of Texas have spoken. And last night, they spoke in a resounding fashion. Let's be absolutely clear about this. President Trump yesterday just had he's had a whale of a month. And I talked to him actually very, very briefly last night. And he made a comment. He goes, I mean, Wesley, I don't mean to brag, but I said, Mr. President, you can brag. This is pretty good. Your record is actually totally worth bragging about. And he said, thank you, Wesley. And he goes, I'm going to need your support here moving forward to make sure that we continue to get America First freedom fighters across the finish line. I said, Mr. President, I will always have your back. The person for this job is Ken Paxton, as decided by we the people here in Texas. And so, yes, I will be as helpful as I could possibly be. I think the president put a truth last night saying that he's going to be doing some big, beautiful rallies down here in Texas. I would love to attend those as well, to be as helpful as I can to the cause. Texas is a red state. We have to keep it that way. We cannot lose in November, and we cannot rest on our laurels.
What does it say about Texas and the establishment that we've had these RINO candidates losing in landslides? I think it says very good things about the MAGA base in Texas.
It does. And people need to wake up and get on board. Yeah. I love President Trump, but if you don't like President Trump and you're a Republican, I don't care. He has been a leader of this party for 10 years. Get on board, because he is far better than any alternative that you could ever think about on the other side. John Cornyn was a 24-year incumbent. He spent $130 million on this race. Goodness. And he lost by almost 30 points yesterday. And I'm not saying this necessarily bag on him. I'm saying that the tide has now turned, and it's time for us to get on board with the America First agenda. And by the way, we have a binary choice coming up here. We have the America First agenda. We have a low tax agenda. We have a safe border agenda. We have a safe city agenda. We have a lower taxes agenda. Or we have James Tallarico, who believes that God is non-binary. This is not a serious conversation. So what I really want to impose, and I really want people to hear this in my soul, is this. We have got to come together. President Trump is clearly the leader of our party. He cannot lose in a Republican primary. It's been that way for a decade. If you cannot understand that now, I call that the definition of insanity. It's time for you to get over it, and it's time for you to get on board, because the train is still rolling.
Yeah, I mean, could you speak to this when it comes to John Cornyn? Man, John Cornyn attacked you viciously, and they had a nasty team, man, and they attacked us online. Yeah. You know, in 2022, these were the dark ages. This was not fun, right? To be an online commentator on the right, and it was like John Cornyn's staff was attacking us just for like being critical of how John Cornyn was handling the border. What does it say to these like nearly extinct but vanishing quickly RINO Republicans who don't think they answer to the MAGA base, that think that they can push for amnesty, for instance, gun grabbing, open borders? These are all things that John Cornyn did.
Right. You know, it's really interesting, too. You know, they spent almost $20 million against me in this race. And I found it to be very fascinating. I said, you know, here we are having a Republican primary, and you're spending, the establishment spending $20 million against someone like me. And I still was able to garner 300,000 votes. And I'm very, very proud of that, in spite of the headwinds that I ran against. But I also learned a very, very valuable lesson. These are the gasping cries of a dying time. And these people are going to do whatever it takes to maintain and keep power. And not to be critical of John Cornyn, but at the end of the day, we all know that he wasn't a big MAGA guy. We all know that he wasn't a big Trump guy. People like you have existed for a very long time. We have receipts. We know that you said it was time to move on from Trump. We know that you weren't a big advocate of him coming back and running again and winning resoundingly in the second term. So at the end of the day, you have to realize that if I've been there for 24 years, maybe it's time to go. You know, there's that old famous saying from Batman, either you die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. At some point, you have to realize the tide has turned and President Trump is in charge, and it's time for freedom fighters, America First type people in this era to step up. A clear shot was sent to the establishment. A clear shot was sent to leadership up in D.C. A clear shot from Texas was sent to Leader Thune. We have moved on from that establishment Republican archetype. That's fine. Everybody has a season. All seasons begin and all seasons end. Everything that has a beginning has an end. It's time for us to recognize that and know that the alternative is James Tallarico, people that can't tell you the difference between a man and a woman, people that think that God is non-binary, that there aren't two genders, that they believe that our southern border should be an open porch. These are the kinds of things that we have got to fight against. And if you do believe in most of the principles of the Republican Party, even if you don't agree with it 100%, it's better than the alternative. Get on board.
117 endorsements out of 117 endorsements. Donald Trump has won in 2026. It's 1,000% win record, and the Senate still doesn't quite get it, man. I don't understand. I've seen it up close. I've watched the way that they operate. They do truly believe that they're the ones who control the Republican Party, that they're the ones who saved Donald Trump. I mean, it's wild the way that the brains work inside of the Senate. It is a alternate universe. What's your message to passing the SAVE Act? You've been such a big advocate for it. What's your message to Republicans in D.C. for getting on board with the Trump agenda? I think that's really why these people are in. Even John Thune, I think, is in threat of losing his seat. I mean, people are so angry about this litmus test and the inability to do anything about it.
The SAVE Act has an 80% approval amongst Americans. I mean, this is not a serious conversation. And right now, we are living in a world to where they're just, it seems like because President Trump wants it, they don't want it. But if you're looking at what's happening here, General Paxton did a very brilliant political play. He said, I will drop out of this race.
Yes.
That's SAVE Act.
Genius.
It was a genius act. And what he did was he basically elucidated our population to what exactly is going on. These people are going to obstruct this no matter what, at least put it on the floor. And if you don't have 60, guess what? Nuke the filibuster and get it done so you can have free and fair elections across this entire country. You talked about Texas doing it right. Texas has actually had a pretty good run the last few years. I will say that. I voted here in the last few primaries and general elections and runoffs, and I got to tell you, it was pretty smooth. By the time the clock struck midnight, we know who won and lost. But guess what? Most importantly is this: you walk in there, you have to show a valid ID. How about them apples? That should be the case for every single state in the entire country. I'm not saying that we should federalize elections. What I'm saying is that only citizens should be voting. And that's exactly what the SAVE Act does. And you know that I have been hammering this till I am blue in the face, because these are also the same benevolent liberal Democrats that say, as I've said many, many times, well, somehow this is Jim Crow 2.0. The SAVE Act is discriminatory against minorities because minorities can't afford to have an ID. They think that Black people are too stupid to get an ID. That's not what it's about, because every Black person I know does have an ID. What they are trying to do is get Black people on board and brown people on board with an agenda to allow the 20 million illegal immigrants that entered this country to be able to vote so they can take over our country. That's the true agenda. And so by passing the SAVE Act, what we're essentially doing is protecting our sovereign nation, protecting our ability of sovereign individuals, our own individuals, tax-paying American citizens to vote. And if you can't get on board with that, well, guess what? Your whole perspective is whack. And you are going to lose not just this election, but many more. So my message to the establishment is this: you're seeing what's happening. It is time for us to come together and realize that what President Trump simply wants is a free and fair election. Pass the damn SAVE Act, period.
Yes. It is the litmus test of our time as to whether you care at all about the interests of the base. And at the very least, you could try and fight for it, but they don't. And they won't, because they don't actually support it. Yeah, they don't support it. It makes you wonder how many of them have won their seats based on fraud or shady election rigging. You have won your seat in Congress. You're a very popular member of Congress, very popular member of the Republican caucus, and you go on the stump with Trump and travel all around the country with him. What's next for you? You're not able to run again because of Texas law, because you ran for Senate. So the House seat will go to somebody else. Then what's next for Wesley Hunt?
Many of you and I are believers, brother. And the one thing I do not do is I don't worry about tomorrow, because that's absolutely in the Lord's hands. That's in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ's hands. And so I get to wake up every day knowing that I am an American that still gets to sit in this office right now and represent this district for the duration of the year. And I intend on doing that to the best of my ability. And I know there's going to be some opportunities that are going to come up. I know there's going to be some things that are available. I am looking forward to this next season. And I will let you know that you'll be one of the first to know as soon as I figure out what I'm doing. And I am very, very excited for the future.
Okay. Well, there's an opening in the Stephen Colbert show. I think you do amazing. Thank you, Congressman.
Hey, happy birthday, man. I don't know if you get away with that. Happy birthday, brother.
No. The last acceptable time to celebrate your birthday as a grown man is 18. And so we're going to scoot right along.
We thank you. You are correct. Just a happy birthday is all I need. Move on. Not my birthday month.
It's a wonderful day to celebrate. It is an incredible birthday present to have the rhinos going down.
What a great gift, right?
Yes, this is a great gift. Peace in Iran, skyrocketing stock market, and collapsing oil prices. These are all wonderful birthday presents for me. A secure America for my family is the greatest blessing.
What a blessing.
And to your beautiful family. Thank you so much, Congressman. Everybody follow the Congressman right here. And we look forward to seeing you on the trail, man, in Texas.
You will, brother. See you soon, man.
I guess I'll be emceeing the Texas State Convention. We're working on that right now. So hopefully
it's in Houston.
I know.
I'm sorry. The national convention is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's no. It's in Houston. No, the Texas State Convention is in Houston.
Yeah, that's right.
So I look forward to seeing you there.
Oh, you will. Trust me.
All right,
See you,
my
brother.
man. See you, brother. We have a special guest for you, and we're thrilled about it. Mays Middleton, who will be the next Attorney General of the state of Texas. And he's been very patient, and he made huge news yesterday, went viral for talking about his vision for the state of Texas. And he's joining us fresh off of a double-digit landslide victory last night in the state. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program for a victory lap. Mays Middleton, the next Attorney General of the state of Texas. Mays, well done, man. It's an honor to have you back. Your takes were like spitting fire on our social media. Everybody loved them. Those things went nuclear.
And a little bit has changed in the last day. I want to
Congratulations.
Thank you for having me on.
Yes.
And I think of one of my favorite verses here. The horse is made ready for the day of battle, but the victory rests with the Lord, right?
Correct.
I'm grateful to the people of Texas and our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, because I could not do this without them. And of course, without our Savior here that has authority over all authority in government is from God. Government doesn't grant us any rights. At the end of the day, this is about our future here. We talked about it yesterday. Macy and I are blessed with 4 little ones, and the left is coming for our kids, right? They're coming for that next generation. And it is a spiritual battle that we are in right now for our future. And last night was a strong message in that spiritual battle. It was a 10-point win that we had, over 140,000 votes. And I'm grateful for Chip Roy. He called me last night, his concession speech and call. And look, he didn't have to do that. That's what a gentleman does. That's what a Texan does. And he said he is all in this November to help us defeat the left and win in the November election, because you see lunatics like James Tallarico, tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars pouring in from out of state. They know that so goes Texas, so goes America. And this is it. This is the fortress for liberty right here in Texas.
The Fortress for Liberty. I love it. You sort of established that yesterday. I was looking at the numbers this morning, and it's great to see the audience feedback with ideas. And we do our best to take someone's ideas, distill them down, and then put them out to a mass audience. Say, what do you think about this? And man, everyone's saying, wow, treating Sharia law as organized crime, stopping pseudo-terrorist groups from being able to buy large swaths of land, entire counties in Texas. These are obviously rock solid ideas that will actually make Texas Texas again. Isn't that the point?
That's right. I think of what we're founded on. 1836. Freedom is not free. Texas won its independence at the Battle of San Jacinto on April the 21st. And those same values that they fought for that day are the same values that we're fighting for today. And whether it's the Islamists, the open borders extremists, the weak on crime, open up the jails, the green new scammers, the LGBTQ agenda, the transgender lunatics, they are all trying to destroy our state. And we cannot allow them to take 1 inch here. And the reason why it's so important here is, Benny, we don't have another Texas to move to. This is it, right here, right now. And this November, they're all in. I've seen it already. James Tallarico, he said that the 10 Commandments is unchristian, un-American. He said that God is transgender, non-binary. He said there's a biblical argument for abortion. And my opponent in this attorney general's race, the Democrat in November, Nathan Johnson, he said the number one law he would not enforce is the one I helped write and pass, the women's privacy law, which kicks men out of women's private spaces. He's basically admitted he's going to campaign on not honoring his oath of office, which we're all supposed to put our hand on the Bible and protect and defend all of our laws and all of the Constitution, not just some of it.
You know, this is, I think, such a critical, there's a lot of polling, and we nerd out over this stuff and look at the crosstabs. And the polling that hurt Kamala Harris the most in this DNC autopsy, I don't know if you read that piece of garbage, but it was really fun. It was a hilarious read. And they just released it last Friday, and I was thumbing through it. And they said that Kamala Harris's commentary on men and women's bathrooms and, you know, calling it a fundamental human right or whatever, right? And then framing that Kamala Harris is for they, them, you know, Trump is for you. That was the single most devastating messaging against the left, and that hurt them more than any other ad. And the numbers prove it. And so this is such a winning issue. You know, James Tallarico goes on and says, like, I dream of trans children. What the hell's wrong? Like, what the hell's wrong with you exactly? I dream of mutilating children. I dream of fundamentally butchering God's design, God's perfect creation. That's what he's dreaming about. As Attorney General, would you seek to make those practices illegal in the state of Texas?
No, absolutely. This is a mental illness that we're up against. I mean, you know, when I had that bill before the committee in the Senate, it was a bunch of men and women's dresses and makeup. I mean, does that not show you what we're up against here? I heard stories also from constituents at the Capitol where their daughter was in the restroom and a man was looking between the slats. Yeah. Right? This is a sickness here. And it is amazing that the left has adopted this as their hill to die on. But look, it's part of their plan, right? The left wants to open up the jails. They want chaos, right? They want people to be confused about their gender. They want to indoctrinate kids. They want to advance this woke leftist ideology. And I think all of it comes down to this. They want to try to make government like God. And that can't be the case, right? We all know all authority is from our Lord and Savior. All authority in government is from God. And the bottom line with that chaos, what they want to do is make people think the only rights you get are the rights that government grants you. Mm. And that's the battle that we're in here, right? That's what the left is going for. You're seeing it right now in Los Angeles, of course, with the chaos and the homelessness and the looting. I mean, it's just, the list goes on, you know, the rampant crime, petty crime all over the city. And I have a really simple goal in Texas. I want to make sure that our state, Texas, is the safest state in America to live and raise a family, period. Because that's how you secure our God-granted freedoms of life and liberty and property. There's a reason why that's mentioned in the Declaration of Independence. And the first thing mentioned is life, of course, protecting innocent life, protecting the unborn, protecting our children.
Yes, I actually, forgive me for not knowing, is child mutilation illegal in Texas currently, or is that something that needs to still be worked on?
It is. We banned it. It was a Freedom Caucus priority when I was chairman of the Freedom Caucus. It was a tough fight. I'll tell you, it was not easy to get done. We got it over the finish line into law. It is illegal in Texas for these evil child transgender surgeries to be performed. It's also illegal to give gender modifying drugs to kids, right? These were sterilizing children. And what this really is, it's child abuse. This is abusing children. And the left was pushing this in our schools. They were trying to force it on kids. You've seen it where they were trying to hide this from parents, what was going on, even with social transitioning, which is also something we banned this past session. So schools are not allowed to socially transition kids. They're also not allowed to even discuss sexual orientation or gender. They're all gone, right? That is all banned in Texas. And our rights as parents are from God, not government. That's what this really comes down to at the end of the day.
So you're telling me that James Tallarico is dreaming about things that are illegal in this, not only immoral, but also illegal in the state of Texas?
Democrats are literally campaigning on breaking the law. That is their campaign platform for November.
Okay. That's a good one. That's a great way to put that, actually. belongs on a bumper sticker.
And it shouldn't surprise anybody. I mean, look at George Soros, right? Look at the money they poured into Texas through these NGOs. I mean, I'll never forget it in 2020 when the bricks were being dropped off at the street corners. Do y'all remember that? Those pallets of bricks.
Oh, of course. I saw it in DC. I saw him in DC, Maze. I saw him in DC. I was on Capitol Hill. It's where I was living, and I saw suddenly these piles of bricks. And these are historic neighborhoods. You never see a pile of bricks. These are some of the nicest neighborhoods. It's not where I live, but like you'd walk them, and it's like this is exactly where BLM was going to march today. And it's a big old pile of bricks put in the corner.
They were neatly plastic wrapped on a pallet. You know, what a coincidence there. You know, and also, look, this happened in the city of Austin. The Capitol was stormed. There were rioters that nearly broke into the Capitol. They assaulted 7 state troopers. And you know what the George Soros elected DA did in Travis County? He went after the officers that tried to stop the riot and prosecuted them, and didn't prosecute any of the rioters themselves. Right? They're treating our laws and Constitution as some sort of suggestion. Right? And that's why these Soros DAs have got to be removed from office. Law and order, tough on crime. That's how we secure the freedoms that made our country great and our state great.
Ron DeSantis removed a George Soros district attorney who refused to enforce and actually cut against Florida law where I live in Tampa Bay. And Ron DeSantis, after doing that, and after all of the attacks that he got from the corporate media, his approval rating went up 7 points here in the state of Florida. And saying you're not allowed to be the law enforcement official that is cutting against and breaking the law. Are you going to do the same thing in Texas?
Yeah, exactly. You know, this has been a cornerstone of my campaign here. It's why law enforcement lined up behind me, whether that's the Fraternal Order of Police or Texas Municipal Police Association, countless sheriffs. You know, I am tough on crime because think about this. You know, I talked about life, liberty, and property earlier. Well, look, if you don't have public safety, if you don't have tough on crime, someone could take your life, someone could take your liberty, and someone could take your property. You literally cannot exercise your God-granted freedoms if you are not safe. And it's a sad testament when we see families that do not feel safe and are moving because of it. You know, you're seeing that in Travis County. People are moving out. It's another reason I believe enrollment is declining in the school district there. We've got to make sure, you know, that we have this law and order that was made Texas great. And it's the law and order that will make sure that those that are moving here, right, are abiding by the laws that we passed in the legislature. And also at the end of the day, we know who's driving this, right? George Soros is driving a lot of this. They're foreign billionaires that are driving a lot of this. They're NGOs like Southern Poverty Law Center that are driving a lot of this. And I will investigate those NGOs and hold them accountable. I will also investigate George Soros on day one in office for the crimes that I believe he has committed against our great state.
Wow. Okay. Off the top of the head, that would be an open border, facilitating an open border into Texas, which has the longest contiguous border in America. Are those the kind of crimes you're talking about? Are you talking about Marxist street revolutionaries storming the Capitol? Can you unpack that?
Well, look, he's funding riots. We know this. He's funding these George Soros elected DAs. Their election where they're literally running on the promise of not following the law, their own sense of social justice, right? There was a DA in Dallas County that said he was not going to prosecute petty crime. There was a DA in Travis County, and he's still there in office, that said he's not going to prosecute criminal trespass, right? We've had other DAs around the state that said they're not going to prosecute our pro-life laws to protect innocent babies, right? Those are on the books, but it's another reason why I support Governor Abbott's statewide prosecutor plan. I also support adding prosecutorial powers to the Attorney General's office as a backup, because we can't rely on these George Soros DAs. But I do want to take a step further than that. Y'all remember Marion Barry in Baltimore?
Of course.
In he DC. Was the mayor. Yeah, he got arrested, I think, for crack cocaine and prostitution. He got out of jail, and then he got reelected. So I want a no Marion Barry's law where if you were removed from office, one of these woke George Soros DAs is removed from office, they need to be disbarred so they are never in the courthouse ever again.
Wow. What's your message to communist revolutionaries, either elected or unelected, that come to Texas to cause problems and try and stage street revolutions and commit crimes?
Got a simple rule. If you're an enemy of Texas, you're an enemy of mine.
And what about elected officials that engage like this? We've been seeing a spate of that with Democrat elected officials actually committing crimes against federal law enforcement.
Right. And we have a very powerful tool in Texas for that. I actually changed the law this session to make it easier to remove local elected officials that are not following the law, that are incompetent, that are corrupt. And what it allows us to do now is file a petition for removal. And it goes to a Republican Governor Abbott appointed presiding judge of the administrative judicial region. The problem before we changed the law, what happened is it would go to a district judge in the same county. And do you really believe a George Soros elected district judge is going to remove a George Soros elected county judge or commissioner or city council member or mayor, or the list goes on? No, of course not. There's not going to be accountability there. So now we have real accountability where those elected officials will face the music, have an impartial trial, and also go to a nearby county, right? A nearby county's jury, prosecuting attorney, district judge, where, for example, in Travis County, Comal County, that's an 80% Trump county right next door. They would face the music there instead of Travis County. So we're going to have real accountability now. And I will make sure that those laws are enforced, because I'm sick and tired of Democrats treating like this some kind of cafeteria style. Like you're going down the line and you pick which laws you want to enforce and leave the rest. It doesn't work that way. And when you do that, you have violated your oath of office, and you should be removed from office.
There's a lot of people talking about removals from the state of Texas. Obviously, Texas has had some close scares with Afghan refugees there and terrorist attempts or attacks. There's been literal terrorist attacks in Austin, mass shootings that happened because of a migrant that was brought there. Something like Allah is great. He was wearing a shirt that said something like that. This is a major concern for the state of Texas. I want to close on this because I think it's existential. If all of Texans and Texas culture gets replaced, then no Republican will ever win again. You'll lose the state forever. As you said, we don't have a Texas to retreat to. There's only one. So what are you going to do to protect your state from what seems like a really pernicious wave of foreign influence in the state of Texas that seeks to change it forever?
That's right. We're seeing, especially in North Texas, like Epic has been in the news a lot, but it's happening elsewhere. And what they're trying to do is institute an alternative legal system of Sharia law and Islamification to undermine our constitutional republic. And we have a very powerful tool for that. It's called the Ban on Seditious Organizations. Okay, and that's an organization that is attempting to undermine our constitutional republic by force or by threat of force. What does that sound like to you, right? CARE, Muslim Brotherhood, some of the mosques, these Muslim-only developments they're trying to push. That's exactly what they're doing there. And it allows us to bring an action to do three things: dissolve these entities, prohibit them from doing business in Texas, and sell their assets. And that's exactly what we've got to do. I mean, look at the mosques, right? The mosques are underwriting these developments because they say they don't believe in interest, right? But that's what it really is. So who is underwriting the mosques? I would ask that. I believe it's foreign enemy countries that are funding this and underwriting this. So what does that trigger? A very important change in the law that I fought for last session was Senate Bill 17, and it prohibits our foreign enemy countries and entities, by the way, from owning any property in Texas. And it allows me expressly as AG to bring an action to force them to sell that property. Wow. So those developments, I will force them to sell and shut them down.
Wow. This is exactly why you won in a landslide, a double-digit landslide, and why this audience should get used to having Mays Middleton on the show as the future Attorney General of Texas, the current Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, heading to the Senate and is now following in his footsteps, a man who we're going to be following very closely, and you should follow him right here. You can follow Mays, his beautiful family, pour in and make sure that you are fighting with the people who are fighting for you in a fight we must win in Texas. Godspeed, Mays. Thank you so much.
Hey, appreciate you, Benny. God bless you. God bless the great state of Texas. And I hope to see you at the Republican Party of Texas convention here in Houston on June 11th through the 13th.
You know, man, we were just at the Stockyards in Fort Worth, and they gave me a cowboy hat, so I might even bring it along.
Come on down.
All right. Your culture is not my costume. That's a cultural appropriation. Thank you, Maze. Godspeed, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's our show for today. We were trying to hold out for the White House cabinet meeting, but it looks like it's a little late, so we'll have to follow up with the actual highlights of that. And we thank you. This has been a celebratory day. We are appreciative for you, of you. We love the audience that we are building, the power that we have in order to change the country for the better. It's all a small victory, and the victory ultimately goes unto the Lord. So let's end with 1 Corinthians 15:57. But thanks be to God who gives the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. What a perfect verse. No explanation needed there. Thanks be to God who gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Be humble, be locked in, and make sure that you're constantly fighting alongside us. We're going to win. That's your boy Benny. See ya.
The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest kings, and their dying legacy, media deal weeds. Soon will the Benny Show come to mind, the salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun, we sail for #1. Come to mind, the salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun, we sail for #1. The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest kings.